over at the bar. He was eating Chipotle, but that burrito's now gone. He has a beer in hand. Jonathan and Braxton, thank you for having us here. And we do want to know that we are live right now, completely live setup, and I do have to thank these Cincy recruits, Visualize Productions, Greg Wichard, Nick Given, for making all of this happen. Normally, I am the full IT guy, but for some reason, they're forcing me to launch this and intro the whole deal. But we make up the Be Different podcast. If you want to follow us, Be Different on Instagram. It's spelled just like my shirt, BeDFRNT. And we have what I call, I don't know if I'm the only person who calls you this, Bobby, but I call Bobby, he is the voice of college basketball. You are not going to find anybody on this planet that knows more, watches more college basketball than Bobby Regan, than maybe Rick Pitino. But I would say...
That's a bold comparison,
Bobby,
sir.
Can you do yourself an introduction? Because I can't do you enough justice.
You want me to introduce myself?
Yeah, I kind of gave you a semi-introduction, but I want you to give a full introduction.
So I am Bobby Regan, like you said, of Bartsool Sports. I cover college basketball in a national landscape. I host my own podcast, the Fundamentally Sound podcast. I'm on the committee for the 3-on-3, which sounds like we're going to have a couple local people playing, based on what I heard. That's the first time ever at the Final Four for $100,000. Like you said, I just watch and talk about hoops.
And Bobby, how many interviews have you done in the last week? You're putting out content every single day. So how many interviews have you done, and what is the easiest place to grab all your content?
So it's in the last 4 days. This is my 8th show or interview. And you can follow all my work at Barstool Reags on Twitter and BarstoolSports.com. Go to Barstool U on there, and you'll find my stuff numerous times a day on there.
All right. So as far as watching the games, where did everybody watch the games this weekend? I was in Nashville. Nick and Greg and Bobby, I believe you guys were all in Cincinnati. Nick, where were you watching your Wildcats play?
I was mostly on the Shays Lounge. It's a Shea Lounge? Or
what is the Shea Lounge? I don't know what that is.
It's a fancy
little seat that we have in the corner of my apartment.
So you were in a recliner at your house. Yep. Greg, I know you're busy on your Mac computer right now, but where were you watching the games this weekend?
I was right next to Nick.
Where were you
Not
watching?
On the same
where were you
seat.
watching the unfortunate collapse of your Xavier Musketeers? We'll move on. Bobby, where were you?
I was in my recliner from Thursday at noon until last night at 1 a.m.
That's fantastic. And you were putting out content literally every 5 minutes.
I mean, there's a lot going
so you
on.
Have to do
I don't know if you know, but this is an important time.
Bobby, can we take a look at upsets?
I don't know if you know. You're a Xavier guy.
I am a Xavier guy. It's been a challenging time for me. I was in Nashville. Can we take a look at some of the best upsets? Let's start in round one. And we obviously have to go to the UMBC versus Virginia. First time in the history of the NCAA tournament where you saw one seed get knocked out by a 16 seed. I didn't even know I didn't understand what UMBC was. It's Maryland, Baltimore County. We all know now. Bobby, what the heck happened in that game? What happened? How did Virginia, the number one overall seed in the tournament, 31-2, lose the first game to UMBC?
Jarius Lyles happened. Right? He was the best player on the floor. That's the most important thing come March. Is if you have the best player on the floor, and Virginia was missing DeAndre Hunter. Hunter would have guarded Lyles for probably 28 minutes. That's the difference. I mean, it's as simple as that, right? Like, and it comes down to hitting shots. Like when you play Virginia, if you hit shots, that's what they dare you to do. They double the post on the catch, make you kick it out. If you hit shots, you win. UMBC did it.
But 34 years, 136 tries before a 16 seed finally got a victory. Do you buy in? I hear everybody talking about now that Virginia, their style of play just doesn't make any sense in the NCAA tournament. Do you buy into that narrative that because there's so much of a defensively based team that Virginia cannot advance in the NCAA tournament?
No, because they were 8 minutes away from a Final Four 2 years ago. Right? Like, if they would have made that Final Four, would we still be having this narrative?
Absolutely not.
And Syracuse is playing at an even slower pace, and they're in the Sweet 16. And Villanova played at an extremely slow pace, and they won a national championship.
And
so, like, you can play slow and win. I don't prefer it, but the only reason we're saying this is because Virginia hasn't done it yet.
And Syracuse shouldn't have been in the tournament. Now they're still dancing.
I still agree. Like, it's a terrible way to judge. The tournament's a terrible way to judge if a team is the best or not, right? Like, just because you survive and win 2 games, it doesn't mean you necessarily should have been in.
Absolutely.
Just like I still don't think Syracuse should have been in.
Nick, why do you have that look on your face?
They're in the Sweet 16. They should have been there.
No.
It's one game, though, Nick.
It's 2 games.
I understand that, but I'm saying each game. It's a
Actually,
one-game elimination.
Won 3 games.
If UMBC lost to Vermont, should they have still made it as an at-large because they beat Virginia?
But they wouldn't have got a chance to play Virginia.
But that's my point. Like they shouldn't have been in, just like Syracuse shouldn't have been in. Just because 10 people sat there and said, "Okay, you're in."
Yeah, but when you play in the ACC versus whatever the hell
America East.
Thank you. And it doesn't matter. They should have got in, and they proved it.
But they weren't good.
But that's the thing about the NCAA tournament, though, is Virginia plays UMBC in a 3-game series, 5-game series, 7-game series. Virginia's going to win that every single time. Every single time. And they just lost, and Jairus Lyles, who's a big-time player in a transfer, he had a great game.
He's a top 100 recruit.
Yeah, a really good player. I want to go to the Buffalo-Arizona game. Arizona, also a team that was in everybody's Final Four. Sean Miller, obviously, has been under some serious investigation.
Most people's.
Under a lot of people's investigation. And you're a big
under a lot of people's investigation.
Under a lot of people's
under one thing's investigation.
Under a lot of
people's
a lot of people's investigation. And Nick, you're a Kentucky guy. I know that you were afraid of Kentucky playing Arizona in the second round.
I wasn't afraid of Arizona. I was afraid of Ayton. And now he's gone. So
the fact that means you're afraid of
fine,
Arizona.
Fine.
But how do you lose that game? You got 3 likely NBA players. Alonzo Trier, DeAndre Ayton had been playing like the best player in college basketball over the last month. I mean, how disappointed are you that Arizona loses that game?
I mean, it's massive. It's a massive disappointment. Like, I wanted to see. I'm sick. Similar with Virginia. I'm sick of the narrative that Sean Miller isn't a good coach because he hasn't made a Final Four. It's kind of played out. But I mean, I get it because this is how you judge teams and programs and coaches and players. How do you do in March? But I just want the best teams to advance. Like, I love upsets in the first day, but then I'm like, no, I'm good without seeing UMBC in the Elite Eight.
But Sean Miller has had such amazing talent, especially over the last 5 years. When you look at Arizona, and then you look at all the other coaches that have made the Final Four. I mean, there's only a few on that list that Sean Miller would even be behind. I mean, he would likely be the best coach that has yet to been to a Final Four, and he's had so much talent over the last few years. Why can't he get over the hump?
Bad luck. I mean, Derek Williams didn't go to the hoop against UConn. He settled for a 3 when he was going to the hoop all game. He goes there, gets the hoop. They go to Houston to play Kentucky in the Final Four. Then you have them playing Wisconsin twice. They played 2 really good Wisconsin teams. They also had bad luck. Brandon Ashley, broken foot. That hurt him. I mean, it's just been one after another. And then last year, sure, Chris Mack completely outcoached him, pulled his pants down, and was just like, nope, I'm better than you. That happens. Like, it's the problem with a 1-game playoff.
We also had one of Bobby's favorite teams. We had Marshall come out with a big victory in the first round. Marshall 81, Wichita State 75. Came out with a big win. Bobby, give me your thoughts on that Marshall game, how Coach D'Antoni was able to come up with that victory.
First off, he's the best dressed man in college basketball.
He's also very comical, very funny guy.
Over Jay Wright, GQJ.
If you're rocking a Marshall T-shirt tucked into your slacks with a blazer.
Right, okay, fair enough.
Greg, if you're a head coach, what are you wearing?
I would say a pretty comfortable fleece, I think.
Are you going to wear a hat during the game?
I would wear a hat.
Depends if I don't have anything to put in my hair, then I'm wearing a hat, which is all the time.
I'd go hat, and I think I'd go Mike Bray. Yeah. Like the unbuttoned, top button, blazer, no tie.
He needs to know if he's going to be able to do a little product at halftime. If no, then...
Oh, man. Who's the Purdue's center? The replacement.
Matt Harms.
Oh, my gosh. He was having some real hair trouble.
He's the most unintentionally hilarious player in college basketball. Like, he just stomps around. He's 7'3", roughly 100 pounds.
That's why I hope Purdue continues to advance. We need to see more of him on a big stage.
You're just sucking up to Jonathan. You're just sucking up to Jonathan.
I have to.
I know.
Jonathan allowed us in this space. Remember, we're at Braxton Brewery. 3 years. This place has been alive. Saturday, storm the court. Please come out. They will have entertainment. They will not have free drinks, but you can go here and buy it. Bobby, I want to get to Loyola. Loyola's in the Sweet 16. How surprised are you that Loyola has been able to make it this far?
I'm not surprised. To me, it was either Loyola or Miami were going to be here. It was just a matter of who won that game, and I thought the winner of that game was going to get to the Elite Eight. The problem was I just didn't know who was going to win that game. Otherwise, we'd be a lot richer. But a team that plays that skilled defensively, and they have a go-to guy in Clayton Custer, and Ingram is a guy that obviously steps up and hits big shots. when they can dictate the tempo and absolutely control the tempo of the game, that's huge. And the other thing is, remember who they played. They played teams that matched up well for them, right? Tennessee, they're not going to overwhelm you athletically. They're not going to overwhelm you with talent. They just hustle their ass off and beat you that way. Miami didn't have Brown. Lonnie Walker's a pro. Chris likes, but again, they're defensive minded first. So it was a good matchup so far, and that's why I think this Nevada Loyola game is probably the most intriguing game of the Sweet 16.
Why is that? Just from Nevada's offensive perspective as well?
Completely. I mean, you throw in the two mid-majors. I mean, Nevada's been the top 25 team all year. At least in my mind, they've been a top 25 team all year. And then it's just the stylistic differences, right? Nevada rolls out dudes 6'5" to 6'7", no shorter, no bigger, and they just run this space and pace. And then you have Loyola, who, again, they run out like 6 foot to 6'7", and they're just going to try to defend you, slow it down, limit possessions. Nevada wants to play 80 possessions. Loyola wants to play 60.
And those two finishes to those games, I mean, the Miami-Florida game, Lonnie Walker misses a free throw right at the end. They come down. Dante Graham hits a big-time shot at the top of the key with about 5 feet of space. And then Clayton Custer, I mean, Loyola had that game, it seemed like, in hand, over the last 8 minutes. And then they really had to come back. Clayton Custer with a big-time shot. But going into this, they were a pick from a lot of people. But they are now 30-5. They were top 30 RPI going into this. So the surprise doesn't seem to be there for Loyola. And, Bobby, we texted back and forth concerning the Michigan State Spartans yesterday. They lose to Syracuse, a team that really shouldn't have even been in the NCAA tournament. Michigan State lost that game 55-53. O'Shea Brissett for Syracuse Battle had a nice game. And Miles Bridges, really let me down. And Michigan State is a team that a lot of people were looking to go to the national championship, a team that you expect possibly to get to a Final Four. A lot of people definitely expected that matchup with Duke. That obviously isn't going to happen. But was Tom Izzo was he just trying to lose that game in the second half?
That was one of the worst individual coaching performances I've ever seen.
Look at this service.
I mean, that is Bobby. Fantastic. That is special.
That's why you get married.
That's what you call a keeper right there.
Well, I have to at this point.
She's clearly your better half.
Yeah. So that was one of the worst coaching performances by Tom Izzo. The fact that and here's the thing, Michigan State just missed a lot of shots. That's fair.
But they shot 37 threes.
Right, but they were all wide open. Like, they weren't forcing them. The problem was on 3 dead ball possessions late in the game where Michigan State was taking over possession, he did not sub in Jaren Jackson and or Nick Ward. How do you leave 2 of your 4 best offensive players on the bench when you are trailing?
Jaren Jackson played 15 minutes in that game.
He should have declared at halftime.
He had 2 points, played 15 minutes.
He should have declared at halftime and said, I'm going to the NBA because I'm going to be a better player there. Like, Tom Izzo absolutely held back Jaren Jackson. That's the only way to describe it.
And Miles Bridges was horrendous.
Yeah, but even then, he was playing Miles Bridges out of position. Miles Bridges is made to be a small ball 4 in college. Why are you playing him at the 3? Why? Why are you trying to jam up with a bunch of big guys in the lane when you already have guards that can't shoot the ball outside of Cassius Winston?
That's true. I mean, Brady Labor is looking at it. I mean, he's nodding his head. He's saying the same exact thing. Bridges needs to get the heck out of there. And when you think about what Bridges did after his freshman year, he should never have came back to Michigan State. And then he goes by the Sparty statue and he says, "Hey, I'm coming back." He gets all Sparty Nation behind him, and then what he does, he lays an egg.
It was
in the round of 32.
You're a Michigan guy. Is this the biggest disappointment for Michigan State from
outside of Middle Tennessee State?
Well, no, relative to preseason expectations, because even that year was a little bit of a surprise with how good Denzel Valentine turned out to be, and the fact that they were 2 seed that were still the national favorites.
Well, I think what you're seeing at Michigan State is you're really just seeing an end of an era, right? I mean, I think Izzo is about past his time. And I can tell my brother is a huge Michigan State guy. He was at the game in Detroit, and he called me. He's like, I can't watch this. I can't watch it.
I'm just glad we can
people
all
are turning
stop.
On Izzo.
You Michigan people can finally
you
stop.
Michigan people. You can't just loop us all into into a bucket of Michigan people. It's not reasonable. It's not feasible.
But I did.
Yeah, but the team that you like is in the Sweet 16.
That's true. You are an actual Michigan guy,
right? Don't get grouped into the State stuff.
We are in the Sweet 16.
Can you text your brother though and say, can you please stop with the rest of Michigan State people saying January, February, Izzo, April? Because you can't lose in the first weekend 3 years in a row and still be considered the month of March.
Izzo's lost his mind.
Yeah.
He's absolutely lost his mind.
I was honestly just disappointed in how he coached this year.
All right, well, we're going to move on past the upsets, and I hope we don't have a ton of Cincinnati fans here. I had a high number of people let me know they were not coming today because they did not want to hear about anything that happened last night in Nashville, what was supposed to be really one of the best days in college basketball history in Cincinnati. You had UC playing Nevada to go to the Sweet 16, followed by the Xavier Musketeers playing against Florida State. Both teams heavily favored. Both teams late into the second half had huge, massive leads that they should never have given up. Both, you could tell by watching those games, better teams, and they both implode at the end. I mean, and people all over on Twitter, media, local stations, national stations are saying that
and
this is one of
this
is one of the worst days in Cincinnati sports history. Bobby, let's go to UC Nevada to start. UC blew a 22-point lead with 10 minutes and 49 seconds to go in the second half. It's the second biggest comeback in NCAA history. Nevada finished on a 32-8 run to complete that victory. Nevada now is moving on to the Sweet 16. Bobby, what do you make of the implosion from the Bearcats, and how did they go home losers?
They got very stagnant offensively. What made them good to start the game is they were attacking. They were playing not necessarily fast, but at a pace that they should have been playing. They weren't completely slowing it down. They were attacking. And then in the second half, especially with like 10 minutes to go, how does Gary Clark not touch the ball every possession? Right? Like, there's your mismatch. Or I know Cumberland was in foul trouble. Him and Evans, like, they should have just kept attacking the rim. That's what made them so good in the first 8 minutes of the game when they scored 22 points.
Well, they also hit threes for the first time in their lives.
Like, but it was because they were breaking the defense down. They were getting in the lane, kicking it out, kicking extra pass, wide open three.
The first 2 minutes of that game, bucket. But
the way that UC plays, you're up 22 with 10:49.
You should never lose.
The way that they can lock up defensively, I mean, I understand that offense is generally a problem with UC, but for them to give up that many points in the last 10 minutes, they just don't do that.
But that's also Nevada's offense, right? Like, it's kind of hand in hand. But this is Cincinnati's best offensive team.
Supposedly.
Talent-wise, it is, right? Like, talent-wise, it is. Numbers-wise, it's not. But talent-wise, it is. How does Gary Clark had 6 shot attempts? How does that happen? He's your best player. Second best player, because Jacob Evans is probably better.
And they're one of the best rebounding teams in the country, and then they lose on an offensive rebound. How awful is that?
And then what ultimately the last play was the one thing that plagued them. Point guard turnovers. Kane Broom lost the ball dribbling. He had a 20. Here, over under, how many teams in the top 25 from Ken Pom do you think had a lead guard with a higher turnover rate than Kane Broom?
I'm going to go with 0 just based on the way that you're asking me the question.
He was there. There was 5.
Okay.
He was 6. That was the problem. Like, everyone Cincinnati fans kept yelling, well, he only has 1.5 turnovers per game. It's like, well, he's turning it over on 20% of possessions. Like, there's per game numbers are terrible to look at, right? Like, look at per possession, overall possessions, everything like that, because it's all relative. That's ultimately what killed them. Like, they didn't have an answer at point guard. Justin Jennifer was the safe play. Defensively, not really bringing much offensively. Kane Broom brought you the offensive standpoint, struggled defensively.
And Justin Jennifer, that's a guard that you can play in the American without any issue. But then you put him against, legitimate teams and contenders. I mean, that becomes an issue. And Kane Broom, his turnovers have been a problem all year. But obviously disappointing. Let's move to Xavier. Xavier, obviously, I'm a fan of. I played there. Greg Wichard, you embody what a Xavier fan is. Xavier up 12.
Thanks, Brad.
So a loser.
Under 10 minutes to go. I mean,
we're in the Sweet 16.
You love Xavier. I mean,
I do.
You wear Xavier everything. You've been a fan. You were that kid at 4 years old in the Garden, screaming out encore to Pete Gillen. I mean, that was you. You were that guy. You have been that guy. You've really never grown up in terms of a fan or an adult.
That's exactly true.
That's pretty fair.
That's exactly true.
But you love the Xavier Musketeers. I mean, that's why you live in Norwood.
No, we're just making things up
Greg,
now, Brad.
Greg, what can you take me? What went through your head? Really, take me through the last 5 minutes. And
Well,
we had a lot of Xavier fans that didn't come out tonight because they didn't want to hear about this. But I want to know. And I'm not trying to pour salt into a wound here.
It's okay.
I'm just trying to understand how you're feeling, how you were feeling, and maybe where you go from here.
When you go 9 minutes without scoring a field goal in the first half, that's a big issue.
My professional analysis, subpar.
Yeah, I would think,
Slightly subpar.
I would think you would score more than that in 9
tends
minutes.
to help, yeah.
And then when you get to the free throw line in those 9 minutes, you choose to make one of two of those. So you shoot 78%, 6th in the country, 8th in the country.
6th in the country.
6th in the country. Yeah. And you're playing a Florida State team that shoots 68% from the stripe. You'd think you would actually you'd be able to beat them from the stripe.
I hear the pain. I hear the pain in your voice.
Well,
I want you to stay away from numbers. I want you to take me
the emotional roller
to
coaster.
what you felt at the end when you knew that Xavier's run to the Final Four was done.
As soon as they hit the free throw to go up 4, I looked at Given and I said, "It's baseball season."
He did immediately. He says baseball season.
And you're a Reds fan?
You know what?
It's a painful life.
So what season are you actually on?
I'm waiting. I'm waiting for Red season. All right, At least I know they're going to be bad.
Nick, were you watching the game with Greg at this time?
I was right next to him, and it was pretty brutal to watch the entire time because I just saw the lead dwindle down, and then all of a sudden I said, "You don't want it to get to 5 with 5 left," and then literally they made a layup with 4 minutes and 59 seconds left, and I was like, "That's not good." And then it dwindled down, blew it with the turnovers. His face, he was still semi-positive, but not very.
Semi-positive.
But not very. You could see it.
6 turnovers and 2 field goal attempts the last 5 minutes.
Exactly. 6 turnovers.
And then they hit that wing 3, and that was when I saw him die.
I do have to say that two of those JP fouls were
bull.
Horrendous.
It was
but the officiating has been
terrible.
Pretty bad the whole NCAA tournament across the board.
Welcome to my last 30 years.
Yeah, they've ruined a lot of games. Especially in the second half. They've literally ruined games.
They took JP out of the game.
And I saw you tweeted, we talk about charge calls.
99% of them are incorrect.
What can the NCAA do about
defensive
these charge
3
calls?
seconds? Implement defensive 3 seconds this offseason.
I can't do it. I cannot deal with the charge calls that we're seeing. I can't deal with it. They're ruining the end of games.
What makes it wrong is refs get so worried about looking at the feet to make sure they're out of the cylinder that they're not looking at anything else. They're not looking if they're twisting. They're not looking if they're set. It's just, okay, they're out of the cylinder. They're in the cylinder. Block charge. It's like, nah, it's terrible. You're rewarding dudes for literally grabbing their nuts, screaming, and falling over. That's a charge these days. And it's a joke. You have to implement defensive 3 seconds, keep the lane open. That's why the NBA is better in a flow standpoint, is because the lane is open. It takes away 4 dudes that are, 6'8", 210, 220 sitting in the middle of the lane, and you're sitting there going, well, I can't really tell, but that guy fell over, so that has to be a charge.
So I agree with you.
Implement. You can still play help, and everyone yells at me well, what happens if help side defense? You can still play help side defense. You just can't plant yourself in the middle of the lane. Yeah,
okay, I agree. But if we're just getting back to Xavier's loss, if we just negate that charge call on JP for foul 5, fouls 3 and 4 were
they were
bullshit.
Bad.
They were bad. They were bad. We know that. If JP stays in the game, it could be a different game, but we'll never know that.
I promise you they win.
They probably do, but we never know that. But
they took him out of the game.
Trayvon Blewett has 8 points.
And that's bad.
Yeah. I mean, literally, I think Trayvon had the worst game of his college career since he was maybe a freshman. And he was a little bit up and down, but that was his worst game. The 2 turnovers that he had in the last minute and a half. I love Trayvon. So he literally gave the ball to Florida State 2 of those possessions.
I want to ask you this because you're a shooter. The last possession of the game, should Blewett have been pulling a Jimmy Chitwood and screaming for the ball?
And you didn't.
Because I'll tell you what, it actually wasn't. It actually wasn't a bad play design. It was a wide open 3.
It was because you knew they were going to switch off and Cantor would be open. Mac knows that he's going to get a wide open 3-point shot if he runs that.
The play design wasn't bad, but at that point, if you're Trayvon Blewett, it's your senior year, and you're having the year that he has, you literally have to say, give me the ball and get the hell out of the way. Right?
But you didn't even see it. You could see when he went to the free throw line that his eyes were not engaged in an attack mode. I mean, you could see it. You could absolutely see it, and that's why Chris did not give him the ball at the end of the game, and he couldn't get open. And that's why where people have issues with Trayvon at the next level, it's like Florida State has some serious athletes, and he couldn't get a shot off.
He's not the athlete to play at the next level. I mean, I think he will play at the next level.
But he's also not focused on like that in the next level either. Like, he's not going to be focused on like he was last night.
Yeah, that's why I think he can play at the next level, because he's a quick enough release, and he's the way the game's going, he'll have a role, but obviously he's not going to be a star like he is, in college. But it's just one of those, like, man, it's your senior year, you need a bucket. You literally go just strip the ball out of your own.
Well, it looked
like
JP was getting fed up. He was like, "No, I don't like how this game's going. I'm going to change it."
Right.
And then, but Blewett never had that moment.
And that's also just the difference between the two of them personality-wise. Which, I mean, you can attest. I felt 15 guys on the roster. How many different personalities?
And I felt so bad for JP, and I was part of the group that brought JP in at the time as I was leaving, and it was hard for me to see JP walk off the floor as a fan and like a friend of who he is. And I feel like if he stays in that game,
what were your NCAA losses? You obviously the Kansas State game.
So my first year we played in Boston, we lost to Pittsburgh. When they were the 1 seed, they had Levance Fields, DeJuan Blair, good team. We were up going in the half. We blew it really the last 5 minutes. Second year was Kansas State, and then
you had what, round of 32, Sweet 16?
Sweet 16 all 3 years.
Sweet 16. Okay.
And then Baylor was our last year, and they beat us up pretty good. They were better than us.
Because that was the year that.
Yeah, I feel like
2012. That was the year that Baylor lost to Kentucky.
You know what was funny is I saw Holloway on Twitter. He's always a very cryptic person when he gets on Twitter, but he said he had elite, and then he had playmakers under elite, and then he had 4 dots next to playmakers. Basically saying that Xavier probably a better team, but he's saying that he was a much better playmaker. That's why he sent that message out.
Right. I mean, that's the thing.
Like that was the thing with like on our teams, like every team
he's
that
a lead guard that's a playmaker.
Well, I had a closer on every team. Right. I had 2 Holloway, Jordan Crawford, even Samaje Christian. Like I had 3 closers on all my teams. And I'm not saying we were better, but I knew at the end of a game, 5 minutes to go, or down 1 with 30 seconds, I know who's going to get the ball.
But isn't this
also? I know that he's probably going to make a play.
Isn't the last 2 losses to Providence and this and the game last night just kind of a evening out of how the season started, right? Like how many games did Xavier come back and hit a shot late in the game that probably shouldn't have, or a comeback that they probably shouldn't have made? Is it just kind of balancing out? It just happened to balance out at the worst time?
Well, I think a lot of it had. I mean, Najee Marshall played 12 minutes.
Yeah, that
the
back
entire game.
Yeah.
Do you know how many Kaiser Gates played? He played 32 minutes, and he had done nothing the past before the Big East tournament.
No, he was really good. No, he was really good in the Big East tournament.
In the Big East tournament, having him play 32 minutes, that just came out of nowhere.
Marshall having that back injury.
Well, it wasn't just a back injury, because I heard Pagese after he sprained his ankle and the play on the sideline where you couldn't tell how badly he was injured, and then he started limping up the sideline.
But even going in with a back injury,
he didn't move well the rest of the game. He didn't move well the rest of the game at all.
I mean, he had 1 field goal.
And that's one of your playmakers, right?
Yeah.
That's a guy that can lock down.
He's your best defensive player.
Your best defender, and he's a guy that started hitting corner threes. Like he ended up shooting like 36% from 3. And he's a guy that can then also take you off a dribble, get to the lane, and he's, 6'7", 6'8"? He can finish inside the paint, like especially against Florida State's length. Florida State's one of the 10 longest teams in the country.
They're huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're massive.
Christ Camacho is taller than this building.
Absolutely. He peaks out the top, for sure.
Huge. Yeah. You got a 7'2" and a 7'4" guy? That's insane.
Yeah. And you're, bringing them off.
I will say Xavier fans definitely felt good going into that game based on what they saw last year, too. I mean, they beat a more talented team last year, beat the brakes off of them. Xavier was not that good of a team last year, and you had Trayvon Blewett go absolutely off, so that wasn't an issue.
No, you hit threes.
All right, we need to get away from this because we're going to stay on this too long. And
let's go to other basketball.
Yeah, we need to move on. What we're going to do is we're going to chalk it up. But before we completely go away from Cincinnati sports, we need a guy not from Cincinnati to my right.
Not from Cincinnati.
Can you talk to us about what we do from here? I mean, these are our teams. Xavier is our team. UC is our team. Not my team, but our teams. Okay. Cincinnati has been through some absolute wars. We've had Bengals, we've had Reds issues, obviously, and you think going into this weekend, you're safe. You think that you're safe. Okay, UC loses, you're like, okay, we still have Xavier. Where do we go from here? I don't want to jump off the bridge. Just give us maybe a little bit of a pep talk, and then we can move on.
There's a few bridges to choose from, too, by the way. It's not just one bridge.
Where?
I think what you do is you come to Braxton Brewery and buy yourself a 6-pack.
There you go.
Just immediately drink.
Especially on Saturday, for your anniversary.
Yeah. Just drink through the tournament.
And then you watch games, because we're all going to watch games.
Yeah. And
like
then
the rest of the tournament.
I mean,
we're all going to watch. We're not just going to stop because our team. We're going to watch.
Here's the thing to remember. The NCAA Tournament is a great way to determine who's a champion, but the worst way to determine who's the best team. Right? Like, a one-game elimination tournament is a terrible way to judge who's the best team. Because how many times has the best team won? The last time was, 2012 Kentucky?
I agree.
Right? So it's a terrible way to judge.
Yeah, you agree because you guys are both Kentucky homers.
I mean, whatever.
Who's the last best team?
Where are you sitting right now, Brad?
In Kentucky.
Who was the last best team to win the national tournament, the national championship?
Kentucky.
Villanova.
Villanova was not the best team in the country that year.
I'm just throwing a name out there.
So it's exactly. So it's one of those, like, it's a great way to determine who's champion.
I feel like I'm like a little kid getting in trouble right now. Like I shouldn't have said anything.
I am. I'm ready to.
All right, can we move on? Because all we're hearing.
Here's what I'm going to say though: is embrace the regular season that both teams had. You won a Big East.
So hard to do.
I know, and it's what sucks. But you're still raising banners. Like, you still won a Big East regular season.
It's kind of like getting blue balled.
You still won an American Athletic.
It's very similar to that feeling.
That's fair enough. That's fair.
I mean, start winning. That's all I can tell you.
It's just tough.
Well, no, you just have to finish.
Right.
At the end of the day in March, you got to finish.
Maybe we should just act like you're from a different city.
Stop.
Bobby,
Moving
who's
on.
the best team left in the tournament?
I think you just said it.
Kentucky?
No.
No.
Oh,
No.
Villanova?
God, Villanova.
Yeah, Villanova or Duke. Like, it's one of those two. Like, here's a better question: who do you take at their peak in a one-game setting? Do you take peak Villanova, shooting the ball 50% from three,
Villanova,
or do you take peak Duke, who's now a top 10 defensive team in the country?
Villanova.
No, Villanova.
The fact that Duke is
Villanova.
anywhere close to that defensively,
They
which
are,
makes,
though, which is insane.
then you have to go Duke.
Like, Duke
Duke has more talent.
Duke is the 7th best defensive team in the country. Villanova is 40th.
But they're the best offensive team in the country. Efficiency-wise.
Right, but Duke's top 5.
I don't know.
And Duke will have the best player on the court, which is also the scary thing.
Yeah.
Duke is a real deal.
It's one of those two, though. Like,
I don't know
you can pick.
I don't know the answer to this question, so that's why I'm asking. How did the Duke-Syracuse matchups this year go?
Duke beat them twice.
Twice?
Yeah.
Okay.
Why does Syracuse continue to do this? How are they still in the
Shin Beihai
tournament?
made a deal with the devil.
They're not good.
They're not. They're not good. They play games in the 50s, and like teams just miss wide open shots against them.
So I'll say this,
They play 6 dudes, 2 of which can score.
but I'll say this as a shooter, I never thought very highly of his own defense. Like whenever I saw his own defense, I was going to get a ton
Zone
of shots.
defenses are trash.
But I played Baylor zone and they were really good.
That's also
And it changed my perspective on how hard it is to get to the middle of that zone and get shooters in space where they actually have
all right.
space
Let me ask
for
you
good
this
shots.
though: How did you attack the zone? Was it a wing flash? Was it a big flash going high-low? Was it a guard flash and rotate? How did you guys?
We were essentially trying to, like we normally do, we try to ball screen the outside of a zone and either go directly to a drive, like into the free throw line, into the lane, or hit and drive. But we definitely tried to work in to out off of a ball screen.
See,
That's what we did.
But
that's what we did.
Baylor also runs that weird 1-1-3.
Yeah.
Like you're talking the 2-3 zone. I don't know.
But
man.
this is why
Syracuse
Duke
isn't good. Like, they're just not good.
And Duke shouldn't have any trouble. They've already seen it too.
Yeah, they've seen it. They run it.
And the fact that Michigan State loses to Syracuse with the rebounding battle the way that it was, I mean, what did they have? Almost 30 offensive rebounds,
Yeah,
and they score 53 points.
Second most offensive rebounds in an NCAA tournament game in history.
And you
have
score
29 and you 51 total rebounds.
What's a more ridiculous stat? The fact that Michigan State had 29 offensive rebounds and scored 53 points, or that Kansas State had 16 turnovers and UMBC had 0 points off of those turnovers.
Wow.
Neither should have happened. I have no idea.
Both are like a physical possibility.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I love the announcers for the Kansas State UMBC game, and they're like, "Well, Kansas State probably hasn't faced UMBC hasn't faced a defense like Kansas State this year." And I'm like, they just played Virginia.
Just beat Virginia.
Like 2 days ago. What are you talking about?
Vermont's also really good defensively. But which stat is more difficult?
What do you make of Michigan right now? That was one of the uglier games that I've watched in the tournament, and then
But the greatest finish.
But you had one of the best finishes. And we've seen a lot of that so far in the tournament. We've had very average played games, but then we've had great finishes. The last 5 minutes have been really interesting. But what do you make of Michigan?
I like them because this is the best defensive team we've ever seen under John Beilein, right? Like Xavier Simpson has turned into a great defensive point guard. Duncan Robinson has adapted to his role. Muhammad Ali Abdur-Rahman is a guy that can be your go-to guy.
Say that again.
Muhammad Ali Abdur-Rahman.
One more time backwards. One more time backwards.
Muhammad Ali
Abdur-Rahman.
Oh, backwards?
Say it 5 times as fast as you can.
Muhammad Ali Abdur-Rahman. Muhammad Ali Abdur-Rahman. Muhammad Ali Abdur-Rahman. Muhammad Ali Abdur-Rahman.
I think that was 4.
That was only 4.
I've been drinking. Muhammad Ali Abdur-Rahman. But from Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. But he's from Allentown. But either way. He's a guy that is turned into their go-to guy, and then you have Jordan Poole and Livers, these freshmen that are now kind of fitting exactly what Beilein likes, right? These wings that he just fills in, and Jordan Poole is going to be a pro player because he went to Michigan.
All right, I want to let you guys shine right now. I really do. And Greg, you're done. Your shining moment is.
I'm not trying to
it's
shine.
It's completely
Brad.
done. I'm talking to Bobby. I'm talking to Given.
I feel like I should go to the bathroom before this.
I'm talking about John Calipari, and I'm nervous to bring this up because I feel like you guys could talk for about 3 hours about Kentucky right now. I really do. I mean, a lot of people they go on that 4-game losing streak, which honestly wasn't that long ago, and then now all of a sudden they win the SEC tournament. They're in the Sweet 16 right now. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander looks like one of the best point guards in the country.
In America.
Calipari seems to have found the right lineups.
I
don't even want to ask you a question. I just want to keep this open-ended, and I want to allow you guys to gloat. I want to allow you guys to shine.
Can I say one statement?
Go ahead, Greg.
One. I just during I think it was after the third loss of the 4. You asked, what's UK going to do? And I was the only one that said...
It was. Greg was the only one.
They could go to the Final Four still. I was the only one. So
I will say, I did tell you, Sweet 16.
It's a good season.
Which I agree with that.
But not anymore.
But now
not anymore.
You're a Kentucky fan, yeah.
I mean, you have the best draw of all time.
And it's in Atlanta.
You know how many UK fans are going to be there? You're going to play... You're going to play
million.
You guys are going to play Kansas State and then the winner of Loyola, Nevada, to go to the Final Four. You could play Loyola, the 11 seed. That hasn't been in the tournament in over 30 years.
I think we're going to play A&M in the Final Four, which is going to be fantastic. That's the real thing. That's what I
don't know about that.
I don't know.
I think you're going to play Gonzaga, but it's fine.
Oh, my God, I would love that.
Nope.
I would love it.
I don't want any bit of Gonzaga.
I would rather play Michigan or Texas A&M.
I agree.
Over Gonzaga.
A&M scares me just because of what happened previously in the season.
That was also at A&M, though.
Well, still.
So go ahead.
But A&M is scary because they are healthy.
Hey,
but they're going to the Final Four.
I don't want to hear about. I want you to gloat about UK, and I'm going to stop.
It's time to stop doubting John Calipari teams until March, right? Like if they go on losing streaks in January, it's irrelevant. He gets his team going late February into March. It's his 9th year at Kentucky. He's missed the second weekend twice. One was a Nerlens Noel injury. One was when they were the 4 seed and lost Indiana, when Indiana was the Big Ten type champions. A completely acceptable loss, whatever. That's an absurd stat to be that consistent in March.
But those 4 losses, they learned more than anything. They didn't even know who they were yet. Like they didn't have role players. They didn't know their roles. They didn't know their definitions on what they're supposed to do. They were all studs in high school, and then they come and then they're all like, well, I'm still going to be a stud here, and they have to find out they have to play together, play as a team. And after those 4 losses, they called a players-only meeting, which I found out through the March Madness thing that's on Facebook Watch. And they called a players-only meeting, and then after that meeting, Kyle sat them down as a group, and they said, I need you to do this. Kevin, this is your role. Shea, this is your role. Green, this is your role. And then now they found a cohesive way to go about it, and they're tough to beat. They're playing great defense.
The biggest thing is the fact that they switched what they do offensively. They're not running dribble drive. They are running Kevin Knox off of baseline flex screens, baseline screens, curl screens, and box-to-box curl screens with a high-low set. Getting him off the wing where he's just standing there waiting to catch and shoot, it's doing wonders. And that's why he's now going to be a top 12 pick, and Shea's going to be a top 14 pick. He's going to be a lottery pick.
And Shea was the least highly touted player in that class. And
yeah, I mean, he was still a 5-star, yeah.
But he was the least highly touted out of the group.
Right. I think people just didn't know about him as much. But, yeah, he's a lottery pick. And, I mean, you can argue. I think he's their best player. You can argue him or Knox, obviously.
Do we know anything more about Vanderbilt coming back?
Who knows? I mean, they'll keep it close to the...
Because if they get Vanderbilt back, it's on.
Because the depth is now there.
Because then that's like an extra man rotation. And if those dudes can stay fresh for an entire game, you're done. They're playing at a very high clip. Brad, you're over there shaking your head. You're not very happy about it.
No,
you're just upset.
I honestly like John Calipari. Like I would say I'm a borderline fan. I'm not like a big fan of anybody, but I have nothing negative to say about John Calipari. I like John Calipari. I think he's fine. I think he obviously does a great job. I think he's used the one and done rule better than anybody else on the planet. And I do think he's the best motivator in college basketball.
If you could play for any coach in the country, not named Sean Miller or Chris Mack, who do you play for?
John Beilein.
I would play for Marshall in a heartbeat right now.
Just because you want to check threes
I would
play zero defense.
I would chuck threes all day and sit in that zone and get beat off the dribble all day. And I would do that with no problem.
I mean, that's probably the right answer for you.
Is that fair?
That's completely fair.
If I could go back in time, I would go with the most spread offense I could possibly find. And right now, I really feel like that's D'Antoni and Marshall.
Well, you should have just stayed home then, because Michigan would have fit you perfectly.
Michigan would have been good. At the time I was getting recruited, it was Amaker. Amaker got fired.
Oh, that's right. I forgot. So, you were right during the Amaker year.
So Amaker got fired.
Amaker's offense would not have.
So you actually
did you get offered?
It's actually a pretty funny story. So Amaker and Michigan were recruiting me heavily, and they knew that I was pretty much down to Xavier in Michigan at the end. So Amaker got let go, and Sean Miller put the absolute full court press on me, like in the week before Beilein got hired. And he told me that it was the Saturday after Amaker got fired, they were bringing in a guard that. If he said, he's like, listen, he's like, I want you to commit, but he's like, this guy's going to come on campus. We're going to offer him. If he takes this, like, your scholarship's gone. He's like, you're gone. Like, and I folded. I folded. And then, like.
Really?
And then a week after I committed.
Who was it?
What's that?
Who was it?
I have no idea.
You didn't get a name?
I probably did, but I don't remember.
Oh,
but a week later after I committed, John Beilein came to Michigan. And I got contacted by, like, a outside source.
The bag was dropped.
And I told him I was done. I told him I was out, and I went to Xavier.
So you were about to get paid and you left?
The other source?
You were about to get paid and you left?
How much money?
He's never told us how much Xavier gave him.
Well, that's because he.
Well, guys, I played for Sean Miller. Of course, my bank account's bigger than everybody else's here. Sean Miller didn't actually. Sean never gave me cash. You know, a lot of gift cards, Home Goods, Steinmart. TJ Maxx. That was more Sean's deal. But nice. Then when he went to Arizona, it changed to cars, actual money.
$100K a month.
His whole deal switched.
How much money do you think Ayton really got?
Oh,
should have been more than what he got.
I mean,
maybe now. I don't know.
He should have made whatever the number 2 pick in the NBA draft last year made.
I think that $100,000 he made that during the Pac-12 championship game.
Because he should have been in the NBA this year.
There's no reason DeAndre Ayton should have ever played college basketball.
The best was, did you see the story where he declared and people were like, oh, like, you know, how long did it take? He's like, I knew my senior year of high school I was declaring after 1 year of college.
That dude's shoulders are like 6 feet, 6 feet wide.
Like, that's just the biggest problem. How is that dude not playing in the NBA right now?
No, it's crap. That's why they need to get rid of the one and done rule.
Right.
He needs to go.
Well, outside of that, Kentucky guys, I'm happy for you. I hope you guys continue to play at a high level. Notice I didn't say I hope you guys win, but I hope you continue to play at a high level.
I think there's a relatively good shot that we win the national title, Brad.
Bobby, who's the best coach left in the tournament? Best coach left in the tournament right now because with all
it's Krzyzewski. Like
it has to be.
It's Krzyzewski.
And then
Who was the best coach before the tournament started?
Right. I mean, he's the best coach in college basketball history.
I mean, come on.
Brad, you broke this down on this sheet here, and it is obvious. Just, I mean, 12.
First off, you can't spell John Bellum, and you misspelled John.
Are you guys really getting on me for my spelling?
Well,
you guys should be applauding me for my preparation, and the only thing that you guys decide to do is to attack me. There's no reason to attack me.
Brad, you did a good job. You spelled Mark Few correct.
So I'll give you a quick story about me, and then we're going to move on. But my first spelling bee was in 6th grade at St. Lawrence Lutheran School in Frankenmuth, and they gave me January was the word.
R-O-K.
Do you want to start? What do you think I started January with?
Oh, my God, you did a G,
G.
G.
I was so nervous I started January with a G.
Did you spell the rest of it right?
What's that? I spelled the rest of it right, and then I got.
He's literally.
And then,
Billy Madison.
I'm like waiting to see if I did it correctly, and I got the ding, and I'm like, wait, I spelled January wrong in front of 500 people.
He's literally Billy Madison. C-O-R. You going to the mall today?
It was awful. It was awful, and I left Coach Cal out of my list. I know that nobody else can see this.
You left a lot.
I left a lot on the list. I will say because I was writing the segments down, and when I get to the end, I start losing energy, and I just completely left Coach Cal off the list, which I didn't realize.
You also left Bill Self off the list.
It's because I don't like Bill Self.
He's better than Jim Boeheim.
I just do not like Bill Self. I would never play for Bill Self.
You also left Jay Wright off the list.
Yeah, that's bad too. It's bad too. Well, I this was more of a.
I'm pretty much just listing coaches better than Jim Boeheim.
This was more of a conversation starter. You know what I mean? This was like, hitting on someone at the bar and grabbing them a Bud Light to start.
You think does that work for you?
Buddy, let me tell you what, you got an in with me right off the bat, right there.
Does that work for you typically? Does that work for you?
Well, with me it would have.
Buying a nice lady a Bud Light.
Depends how good I feel that night. But yeah, if I feel like I'm in a good spot,
wouldn't go with the vodka tonic.
I'll go with a Bud Light and a nice look in the eye, and
Prosecco.
And then after that, we'll determine if you're worth a Patron shot.
Brad orders a nice lukewarm Bud Light.
You don't shoot high and miss low.
I aim low, then shoot high. Jesus. I need a little bit of insurance to start off a conversation.
That sounds terrible. But I feel great for Christy.
Yeah. She's not even looking.
Yeah, she is really listening right now. Anyways, most intriguing matchup, Bobby. I want to get your
Villanova, West Virginia. I think that's a positive answer.
I did something right on this sheet because that was my number one.
You also put, I think, the worst matchup on here.
Which one?
Kansas Clemson. Every other game is more. Well, that's probably the second least intriguing game.
I guess I just want to see if Bill Self blows it because I don't like Bill Self. There's something about him. There's something about his face. I just don't. I do not like Bill Self.
But I mean,
why?
He looks like he's 12 in like a 60-year-old body.
It's because his toupee. But
he's got big cheeks.
The Duke.
You ever notice his big cheeks?
Yes,
they're gigantic.
Duke Syracuse is by far
trying to blow an air bubble.
Duke Syracuse. Go buy him a lukewarm Bud Light next time. But Duke Syracuse is by far the least interesting game. I think Kansas Clemson after that's probably the next least interesting game.
I just can't wait to see Bill Self lose.
I mean, it's definitely Nova, West Virginia, Michigan A&M.
I would say, Bobby, break it down. Like, who do you have advancing throughout?
Yeah, give me your final four, and then we're going to end it here. We're going to end it. Our time here is running short.
Let's start it up top in the South.
Running
Kansas
short.
State, UK.
Kentucky.
Loyola, Nevada.
And the final four?
No.
In the game.
Kentucky and Nevada both can't advance to the Final Four.
And then Florida State, Gonzaga. Michigan A&M.
Michigan.
Really?
Really? That's surprising.
That's surprising. Villanova and West Virginia. Nova. Do you have Nova all the way?
Yes. They were my preseason pick.
Smart man. Tech, Purdue.
Tech.
Nice.
Sorry, Jonathan.
Kansas, Clemson.
Kansas. Sorry, Brad.
Go Clemson.
Wait, you have Clemson?
Clemson winning it all.
He does. I do not.
You have Clemson winning it all?
No.
That's an unwise decision. And then, okay, you have Duke.
Duke, yeah.
So then your Final Four now?
Kentucky, Gonzaga, Villanova, Duke.
Whew. I agree with you, except for I think it's going to be A&M.
And then Nova over Gonzaga.
Oh, back-to-back for Gonzaga, huh?
Yes.
Doing the Butler effect.
I mean, they're kind of like similar, right? Like the way people kind of look at Butler or Gonzaga, like yin and yang of how they kind of turn into each other. Yeah.
So it's gonna be Kentucky, A&M, Villanova, and Duke.
It's actually gonna be it's gonna be Loyola, Syracuse, Florida State, and who's
I know
who's the team, like Tech.
Hey, Brett, I would ask you what you think, but like I witnessed your first picks and they have not gone well. Besides Purdue.
I've got
who has made good picks though? Besides my 85-year-old grandfather who put Loyola in the title game.
Nobody.
If you knew anything about the teams, you would not do well.
Yeah, not good at all.
Brad, one last question for you.
Go ahead, Greg.
Has Chris Mack coached his last game at Xavier?
Ooh.
Do you think so?
Do you have sources?
I've heard sources.
Call him right now and ask him.
You can't see him, but Tom, the intern, told me about a lot of sources that say that he's gone.
So me and Tom spoke about this in great length this morning over
did you?
An all-star special at Waffle House. And
Tom looks like he has no idea where he was.
Tom looked at you like you're speaking a foreign language.
Do you know this Tom versus another Tom?
Is your last name Harmon? Oh, wrong Tom.
He was a football player for Michigan.
I won the Heisman Trophy.
Yeah.
So we had
42.
Michigan's a great football tradition. But I have two strong sources.
Better basketball school.
One says he's staying. One says that he's leaving. And I will say,
just call and ask him.
You can literally say that about anything.
Just call and ask him.
The source that I have is better. It says that he's gone. I will say that.
To Louisville.
Not Xavier.
Well, he wouldn't be gone to Xavier. That would be true.
St. X.
Yes, he's going to coach LaSalle girls basketball again.
No, but he has some decisions to make. I mean, obviously Louisville can pay him more money. Xavier's doing whatever they can to make him comfortable.
Speaking of coaching hires, right before we hopped on,
Tom Crean.
Well, that was
Georgia.
Awesome.
And then there was
right before we hopped on, Dan Hurley was reported to take the UConn job.
Wait, the
Rhode Island.
Rhode Island.
Yeah.
His Bobby coaches Arizona State, correct?
Correct. What do you think of that? Because that was the one that everyone was kind of. Hurley was on everybody's list. That was number one. Are you surprised that UConn actually got their guy?
I think it's a good move.
Okay.
I'm surprised
UConn had to do something.
With other jobs open, I'm surprised he went to UConn.
Yeah, but what other jobs are open, though?
And that is a...
Yeah, but why do you want to go play in the AAC when you can go to the SEC?
I mean, Hurley's a Northeast guy. He was never going to go to the SEC.
Okay. Well,
I love that hire.
I just think the AAC is butt.
Yeah, but you can turn it into something. Like, you can turn into you can turn UConn into a destination job, just like you can turn Cincinnati and Wichita State into destination jobs.
Okay, I guess.
Like
really? How do you turn Xavier into a destination job?
It might be. We're going to find it out. We're going to find out.
It is. Like, for Chris Mack to leave, it's a blue blood top 10 job to prime away. Louisville's a top 10 job.
Oh, they make more money than any other college basketball program in the country.
Right. So to me, a destination job it takes that type of position to pull you away. Xavier has that. Like, when they've lost coaches to Ohio State, Arizona, and
Virginia, Wake Forest.
And that was before Xavier is what Xavier is now.
Right.
I mean, and to go to the ACC from the A10 at the time.
Yep.
I mean, that's a no-brainer. Now that they're in the Big East, you can obviously be a 1 seed. You can obviously win a title as the new Big East. It takes a top 10, top 15 job to pull it away.
I mean, obviously, I'd love to see Chris stay, but I have no idea. There's a lot of layers to that. I think beyond money, relationships, where his family wants to be. I mean, but if he doesn't take the Louisville job, he's never going to leave Xavier. I mean,
Kentucky. I'm dead serious. When Calipari leaves, he'd be a perfect fit there.
I would be pretty stoked.
They're so much different, though. Calipari and Mack are so much different.
I've had a bad enough weekend. Can we give it a couple weeks before
we'll give it a couple weeks.
Mack goes to Louisville?
Greg and I apologize.
And then the Kentucky-Indiana rivalry can start back up with Mack and Miller.
There you go.
Well, Greg, I know it was challenging for me and you to talk about Xavier, but we really
didn't want to be here today.
We really didn't have much of a choice. But hey, I'm going to tell you this, and I'll tell UC fans, it might get better. Okay, it very well might get better,
but it also might not.
As a fan, you just ride it out. You ride it out. It is what it is.
I'll tell you, both teams are not going to have as good of a year as they did this year.
I'll tell you as a Kentucky fan, it will get better next year, too.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Because they're going to be loaded next year.
Bobby and Nick, outside of how much you guys enjoy watching the NCAA tournament, congratulations so far on Kentucky going to the Sweet 16.
For the Final Four.
No, Kansas State's going to win by 30.
Possibly.
The way we're talking, Kansas State's going to win by 30.
I know.
And we do appreciate Braxton. Can we give Braxton
Yes,
a very
thank you.
strong thank you for allowing us to shoot
Storm the court.
the Fundamentally Sound podcast, the Be Different podcast, the
Best beer in
joint
Kentucky.
podcast.
Thank you, Jonathan.
It was pretty fun. We had a few beers. We had a
Even
lot
though
of
you're
fun.
a Purdue fan, that's okay.
Oh, Jonathan has a backpack on, which says that
he
he
is
needs to get
ready
the
to
heck
go.
out of here. He
Come
wants us
to
to
the
leave
3-year anniversary
immediately.
party.
Jonathan, as we speak, is taking our mics off so that we stop talking. But we do appreciate it. Remember, Braxton's 3-year anniversary is on Saturday. Make sure you come down to Covington, enjoy some drinks, some fun. There is some Pop-A-Shot here as well, and watch some games. UC Xavier fans, forget about it. Go grab yourself a beer at Braxton.
And go pet puppies.
Opening day, March 29th.
Absolutely. So we appreciate everyone for checking us out on Facebook Live. Remember, Be Different. Check it out, BeDFRNT. Bobby, the Fundamentally Sound podcast. Best way to find it, Apple Podcasts.
Apple Podcasts,
Okay, that's how I
Stitcher,
catch it.
Google Play, all that good stuff.
Awesome. We appreciate it. And that is Brad Redford, Be Different, and Bobby Regan. We are out of here.